Hello and welcome back. Today I have a real quick follow-up review. It's for the Proeliator fetter from Poker Armory. Now, I will leave a link below to my previous initial review video about this sword. I think you should watch that if you haven't, because it's got a lot of good information in it, which I won't really be going over in this video. This video is more to affirm some of the things I said in the video or elaborate on some of those things. In that video, I had mentioned I thought that this sword was going to replace most of my swords as my main practice weapon and sparring weapon for long swords and or fetters. And that has actually stayed true. I can say that I use this one now 99% of the time, and I won't really be replacing it until I buy a few more fetters to test against this weapon. What I can add to that, after having used it for a while, this sword has a couple good characteristics about it if you like agile fetters. So the point of balance is pretty close to the blade. It's about 8 centimeters or maybe slightly a little more, but it's very close to the crossguard and the hilt. And because of that, it's very agile, and it's agile at the tip. Another bonus is the blade is about 6 millimeters on its edge here, and then has a nice taper all the way to the tip. That gives this blade enough presence in the cut and when you bind with another person's sword to feel a little bit more of a blade presence than you would with a point of balance that is this far back on the sword. But if you are you're purchasing your first fetter, or you're looking for another fetter, and you're the type of person who does like a blade that's got a heavier blade feel for cutting through an opponent's sword, or you like a very, very strong bind and you like your point of balance a little farther out, let's say about here, this blade option probably isn't the one for you. With that said, fit and finish that I mentioned in the previous video as being very good is still very good. It's taken a lot of nicks and dings on the crossguard. It's stayed solid. There's no rattling. Nothing's loose. And that goes for all of my poker weapons. They've all held up very well. This blade itself, after repeated use against actual long swords, not just fetters, way stronger weapons than these, has developed no noticeable burrs. I've done very low maintenance. I haven't even filed the edge of the blade down to get rid of burrs yet. It's got some standard nicks and some dings in it that you would expect, but nothing major. And on top of that, I've gone against a couple, I can't remember the names of them right now, but a couple long swords that are actually more traditional. They don't have fullers and they hit pretty hard. I've also gone up against a person who I was sparring against who actually had a very large, I don't know what to call it even, like a katana, but it was actually oversized and had a very heavy blade and was very front weighted, so it hit very hard. When it hit this sword, it was actually a little worrisome, but this sword held up very, very well. The only changes I've made was I found the handle a little small, meaning the circumference of the handle a little small, but I've since wrapped it with some cord and some hockey tape to give it a little bit more girth. And what I also do like about this handle is it's slightly oval. So in your hand, you always know where your edges of your swords are because it's not a perfectly round handle. The final thing I'd like to quickly talk about is in the video, I only really had one complaint, and it was about the blade flexibility overall and the flexibility of the blade towards the tip. So far, I've had some major thrust with this sword, and it has sprung back to true, but it has warped ever so slightly. You may not even be able to tell because I bent it back a few times, but it's kind of twisted a little bit and it has warped. But that's after some pretty heavy use, so it is holding up pretty well. And I think for a blade with such an aggressive fuller in it, it's holding up quite well. But I think I still have the exact same opinions. In order for this to be like truly one of the best fetters I've ever handled, it does need like a few percentage more rigidity in the blade. It does have really nice flex for the thrust to protect your opponent. That's for sure. It's about 14, 15 pounds of pressure needed to flex, but you can see I'm not putting much effort into it and it flexes. So from a safety standpoint for your opponent, it's really nice. But I still think that the fuller maybe shouldn't go quite as far down to the tip, maybe ending around here, because the tip is quite weak. So an area of which I notice more and more as I sparred, it doesn't wobble when you cut. it stays actually very true. But when you're transitioning off of a person's sword, or you're finding their sword in the bind, particularly in the last section of the tip of the blade, it bends very easily at the tip, and it almost twists a little bit. So I think the front half of this weapon, which is where you want most of your flex, like that, for protection, maybe doesn't necessarily need to be stiffer, but I think maybe with less of a fuller, it might have less of that feeling in the bind that it's really weak. But with that being said, it's nothing that is bad on the sword. It's something you just notice. And if you're particularly used to more of a solid bladed fetter without a fuller, you might notice that more and you might not like it. But I would still say, from my perspective, it's nothing that should dissuade you away from using this sword, particularly if you like a sword that's very agile with a balance closer to the crossguard. That's about it. So far, I don't know if I'll do another review of this sword unless there's something, my opinion on it really changes, or unless I get something similar to it that I need to compare it to. Right now, it has become my main weapon. It's very agile. It's very nice to use. It's a little bit lighter than most. So if you like a heavier sword with more blade presence, you might want to look at either a different blade from them or a different sword option. That's it. I have a couple more reviews of poker stuff coming, and those will also be final reviews for those weapons. Thank you for watching, and I hope you watch the next one. Thanks. Bye.